BlazzinBob gets nothing effect. Has that one taken away by Troy Hellman. It seems like this could be.
Hello and welcome to the Overwatch League recap, a talk show focusing on the Overwatch League. I am BlazzinBob. As usual, I'm joined by Mel. What's going on, Mel?
Oh, hey, not much. Been an exciting weekend.
How so?
The Chiefs won the Super Bowl.
Chiefs. Oh, and they represented well. Like during the national anthem, when it finished, they said the home of the brave, and all the Chiefs fans in the crowd went Chiefs. It made you feel like you were right at Arrowhead Stadium. It was a glorious game, and Patrick Mahomes, like, you just never can count that dude out. I mean, he could just like come back from anything, and he showed it last night, and the legend continues to grow. But that's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about
I
the
mean, we
Overwatch
could. We
League.
could talk about it all hour.
We probably could. We probably could. But we'll save that for something else. But not here. Tonight we're gonna
Okay.
basically be talking about hero pools and quick patching and updates. But first off, we always like to start off the show by thanking our recap producer Shazir. Thank you so
Woohoo.
much. And let's just jump right in, unless you want to talk about something prior.
No, just the fact that there's only 5 days left, guys, till we get some Overwatch League.
Yeah, it's gonna be exciting, and I mean, all the different things, the craziness going on in China. Uh, it's gonna be a little bit weird just to start. So far, we do have some more information about what's going on with the Chinese teams. I'll let you tackle that, Mel.
Yeah, so Overwatch League came out and announced that they are canceling the Chinese homestands through March. And they haven't figured out basically if they're going to reschedule them somewhere else right now or if they're going to do it at a later date. They don't have that information yet. They said they're exploring all their options. But they did say, for the health and safety of all of the fans and the players and the teams, that it's the best call to do right now. The Charge and Dragons have come out and announced that they're moving their practice facilities to South Korea for now. Hangzhou Spark has not said anything. And the Chengdu Hunters are in China and will stay in China for now. Basically, I think from what I hear, well, I think the Charge has some people still in China right now. All of their non Chinese players are in South Korea or heading to South Korea. But the Chengdu hunters said that they are going to follow their government suggestion. They're extending the Chinese New Year and they'll keep us posted.
And it's got to be a logistical nightmare what the Overwatch League is having to go through right now, with this happening just so close to uh to the start of the season. Something I did notice on the was no Corona commercials on at the Super Bowl last night.
You think that was on purpose?
It's got to be rough for that brand also.
Yeah, right. They're like, you really couldn't pick a different name? Come on. You had your choice of names. It's not like it was already named. Somebody named it Corona.
Oh,
Darn
it's
people.
just yeah, it's just weird. I wonder what the story is behind that, or how they even came up with that name.
Right. But if you look at the schedule, you've got so the Shanghai homestand, February 15th is canceled. The Guangzhou homestand, February 22nd is canceled. The Hangzhou Spark homestand, February 29th is canceled. And then we don't know about anything going forward. But
Oh, this is a big hit. for the league, but it's also a big hit for China, and we can't forget that, like, people are dying, and this is scary, so hopefully they can get this under control, and then us nerdy video game people can get, our league back going again, right?
Right.
Oh,
Oh,
man.
well, I guess if it's canceled all the way through March, then both the Guangzhou Charge or 2 of the Guangzhou Charge homestands, I think they have 4 total? They have 5, and their first 3 are canceled because they had 3
Oh,
before the end of March.
it's horrible.
Yeah, that's a
Oh,
bummer.
yeah, I don't know. Is there anything else you really want to say about that? I really don't want to talk about it because it just really kind of bums me out. Just the actual human problem and these people, the players that are there, everybody who lives in China and the scare, and Europe right next door to them, like scared that it could move over there. So
Yeah, I mean, I think overall it's a scary thing, and I think it was probably the best decision to cancel the homestands. I just now am worried about the people who are over there and including the Overwatch League players and staff and what that's going to look like, even getting them out. Like what impact does it have on Owl is different than what impact it has on, the world. But what impact does it have on Owl is basically boiled down to can they get enough people to field a team that can travel outside of China?
yeah, like I don't know what if they'll I don't know what they can do. I mean, they could pull up can they could allow them to pull up contenders or something for a time being or something, but either way, it just kinda really puts a sour stain on their competitive chance.
Right.
It's just a bummer for everybody involved. But moving on to something a little bit more exciting and definitely less deep. Jeff came out and dropped a bomb on us with hero pools. Everybody speculated that it might be hero bands, but turns out it's hero pools. And he talked about that, the Overwatch, the game. He talked about, it coming to the game. And then the Overwatch League released a blog of how they will handle hero bands. And this is basically what it boils down to. Starting March 7th, one tank, one support, and two damage heroes will be unavailable for selection that week. Uh, the heroes that are banned are going to be randomly selected from a group of eligible heroes based on play rate data from the previous 2 weeks of the Overwatch League matches. So that makes sense why they're waiting till March 7th. They need data. No hero will be unavailable for 2 weeks in a row. Uh, this whole pool thing will not be used during any mid-season tournaments, play-in tournaments, playoffs, or grand finals. Teams will be informed each week, approximately 1 week in advance of matches. Uh, to go past that, patching and game updates whenever the live game receives a new patch, the Overwatch League will begin to play on that patch 2 weeks later. Any mid-patch updates to the game that go into effect during a match weekend will be deployed for Overwatch League matches the following weekend.
Right. So they're saying that typical patches that come on like Tuesdays will be implemented 2 weekends after it comes. So it's a little less than 2 weeks. But if it comes like a mid patch that comes on like a Saturday or something, they'll implement it the next weekend.
Interesting. So, want to get your thoughts. I want to get your thoughts just right off the bat, and then we'll kind of dive in and unpack this more, the specifics. Just your thoughts in general about what you think of hero bands,
Well, let's be
or
clear,
not
this
bands, hero
still
pools.
is hero bands. It's just Blizzard selected hero bands, which I think is great. I think I do think that we would have just had a band meta, and somebody may have gone crazy, like the Chengdu Hunters, and banned a random hero, but 99% of the teams were still just gonna ban the same standard heroes so that they could play their meta. And so I do think that this is a way to give us more excitement in the league and make sure that there's differences. I also think it's gonna be it's gonna be tough. It's I think it'll be interesting to see how the teams adapt to it. I wonder if you won't see as high level of play because they don't have time to master that composition, right? If they're changing compositions every week for the most part, you're
You
not
might see a lot more full holds and things of that nature.
right. And their practice time this season is cut down because of all the travel. So I know Harsha came out and said that they'll have approximately like 60% of the scheduled practices that they had last year.
Which
And
I don't
yeah, I
think
mean,
that's bad. I think like they possibly were over practiced.
yeah, I agree. And I think this will, but the thing that this does is it shows a little bit more kind of like raw talent as opposed to mastering a specific skill. I do think that it'll get the best teams into the playoffs and the grand finals
I think
because
that
they're
is
the
very
most
true.
adaptable teams.
Yep.
I
I
do
mean,
like that it's not in the grand finals in the play-ins. And I know there's controversy on this on like why would you not have it in if you have it in all season? Why would it not be in there? But you also have to think about like people that are out of the tournament, like they could be screwing up the meta picks, trying crazy things and then weird heroes are banned instead of other heroes. So like
yeah,
I don't know.
it could severely impact in those types of games. But I mean, I like this a lot. Like I've heard people talk for it, I've heard people talk against it. I like this way more than the thought of hero bans where they walk on stage and ban. Remember I told you when we talked about bans, I feel like the coaches need a week or something of that nature to know what they're going to do and set a game plan. Well, this does exactly that. It gives them that week, that time to plan. I'm not as sold on it in the actual game itself, and I don't even know how they're implementing that. Like when Jeff gave his example, he said Orisa and Sigma and May and Baptiste. So that's 2 tanks, 1 DPS, and 1 support. So Overwatch, the game, might be doing like a completely different, group of heroes that they ban. But I I didn't think bans would be good unless you got time, and this is even better, I think, because people can't, try and game the system. They just have to play within the rules of that week, and I think it's gonna be exciting, and I think it gives a lot more to the matches each week. It gives a lot more speculation once we as content creators know what the bans are. Like, oh gosh, so are they going to bench so and so because we don't have Diva? Like, there's going to be a lot of
Right.
interesting speculation each week instead of being like, oops, yep, the Outlaws still suck at goats. We had that
Hey,
storyline for freaking months, like it's gonna be a lot more exciting, I think, for fans and for content creators. Now, for the players, it might be a lot more stressful for players, especially
yeah.
the one tricks.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it just is going to value less one tricking in general. But I also think they'll still have their time in place, right? Because your hero's banned this week, you don't play 1 week, but you do play the next week because it can't be banned twice in a row. So they're just more situational. And I think it will lead to people utilizing more of their roster as opposed to before when it was like you've got a set starting six and then
Yep.
the others just kind of sit there and wait for somebody to what? tweak their wrist. Like you're not
Yeah.
even like you're just sitting on the bench waiting for somebody to not go
Yeah.
great.
Well, and then lots of those bench players, when they do get to come in, they're like scared to death. They have nerves. They don't, like they it's bad because they weren't expecting to go in. Someone's sick and then they're
Right.
all of a sudden playing and they're like, okay. But in this case, you know, I would think you would have, different assignments to your different players, like, and you could actually see a lot more of them play. Now, I've heard a lot of players on Twitter freaking out about this,
Mhm.
and it seems to generally be the one tricks.
Yeah,
Lots of diva mains really not happy about this. Lots
naturally.
of people. But I mean, one thing I've found about competitive Overwatch in the 3 years that I've been covering it now is that players just really don't know the best. I mean, we had like I heard Yiska say this on Tactical Crouch, and I loved it because it's true. It's like new hero Ana comes in, doesn't get played. Pros say she's garbage. Then all of a sudden they find out she's the most overpowered player in the game. And it's
Right.
just pros don't know. They said Sigma wasn't going to be that good. Like pros, they really just don't know. They know how to play the game. That's what they do. But as far as analyzing it, I take what they say a lot of times now with a grain of salt. Not like I used to think that what they said was gospel. And now I'm just realizing, well, and even when I talk to coaches and players during the actual season, they don't even know what's going on with other teams. They
Yeah.
have no idea what's going on in the league itself because they're so focused on scrimming their scrims with whoever will accept to scrim with them. So the bad teams never get any help. Like it's
Right.
just you can't listen to the players. I th I think we just kinda have to see where it goes, but let's kinda dive in and break this down a bit.
Well,
Um
one more thing. I
Sure,
think
go ahead.
that not only is it going to be exciting to watch, but looking at just the fact of the creativity will increase, right? So I I can't remember who said this, but teams always just played what somebody else figured out was best. And now they
Jane
are
said it.
yeah, and now teams are inclined to try to find something else because you can't wait to see what somebody else plays that's good with that meta because you're playing that same weekend too. And even if you're on a buy, you're not going to have the same hero pool available as they did last week. So teams I think will really start to grow into their own, which I'm excited to see.
And s
Kind of find their own niche or their own strength.
and start truly understanding how the different characters in Overwatch interact with each other instead of just how this specific meta characters interact with each other.
Mhm.
I think you're right. It'll force creativity. I think there is going to be a good handful of teams that were just the copiers and not the innovators, and they're not going to be happy with this change, and they're going to complain about it. It's because it's human nature. Coaches, players, they're going to complain if it doesn't benefit them. I'm
Yeah, they're
sure
gonna struggle.
yeah, I'm sure Prophet's ecstatic right now because he's like, I can play whatever you want me to play, bro. You know?
Yeah, but Prophet also learns how to play a lot of his characters from watching other people play them really well.
Yeah,
He's really good at it,
but
but
I'm just saying he's the
he adapts
best
quickly, you're
player that
right.
I could think of right off the bat that this is going to benefit.
Yeah, you're right. He adapts very quickly.
Yeah, okay, so let's kind of break this down piece by piece. So how do you feel about the one tank, one support, and two damage being locked out? Do you think they should have do you like that, or would you have rather have went with like just ban the most popular ones, and if that happens to be 2 tanks or 2 supports, so be it. What do you think?
No, I think they had to do it this way. I think to truly disrupt a meta, you have to take a tank of support and at least 1 damage, and there's just so many damage heroes that you should take 2 of those. But I feel like if you take away, you know, Sigma, you get Diva in the same meta. If you take away Sigma and, I don't know, Baptiste or whoever's in the meta, right? Like, if you take away a support and a tank, then you're really disrupting that meta. The damage, I think, are much more interchangeable other than heroes like Mei or heroes with really niche abilities. But
I
for the most part, you have a hit scan, maybe Ash isn't as good as Widow or Hanzo, but if nobody else has Widow or Hanzo, she's great. you know?
With our current amount of heroes, I would have to tend to agree with you, just because, right now you've got Anna or Baptiste. They both do long range damage. They can both help with you know, a Pharah in the sky. They can do similar things. Whereas if you got rid of both of them, then all of a sudden everything, you're just going to have to do a brawling stat. So I think with the
Right.
current heroes, like it just would be really weird if you were to ban 2 or 3 tanks, but I do think it would shake the meta up even more though. I do disagree with you on that point. I think it could really shake things up to where it's like, what am I even watching? Because can you imagine if
But don't you think you
Sigma,
probably
Reinhardt, and Orisa were banned? And then you're just like, well, guess
but
we'll
then you're
do
forcing a meta. Then
yeah,
you're forcing dive, right? Like you you don't want to do that either. You want people to have options available that still don't limit them. Because if your only main tank options available are Ball and
Ball and
Winston,
Roadhog.
what are you gonna do? You know what I mean? Like you're and then you don't want silly comps either. You don't want them to ban, you know, 3 main tanks, and then you've just got this random, stupid, weird comp that nobody would ever play unless those were banned.
Yeah,
So,
although that could be seen in the regular game if, we still don't have confirmation from Jeff and the team on like exactly what they're gonna ban. They could be crazy bans for
they
all
could
we
be, but
know.
I feel like they took control of the bans to not have them be
Crazy.
stupid.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
I
Like,
could
they don't
definitely
wanna
see that.
ruin the game. Their goal is to increase variety, not to pigeonhole you into a different meta or to force you to play a cheeky meta that you don't wanna play, right? That would I feel like would totally lose the competitive aspect of the game.
Yeah, yeah, I can definitely see that. All right,
It's like
so
saying, "Today you don't get to have a quarterback on football. Sorry, I
aw,
have to figure something else out.
aw.
Chiefs don't win the Super Bowl."
Well, I mean, the 49ers could probably get, away with not having a quarterback.
Yeah, might
Uh,
do better.
Alright, so their process for banning the randomly selected, uh, heroes from a group of eligible heroes, and those heroes become eligible by play rate. So how do you feel about this way of randomly choosing?
I think randomly choosing is fine. I mean, we don't know really how random it'll be, but only time will tell. But I think the thing that's going to be interesting is what happens if the teams are playing very, very different hero pools. Or what happens if a team is very successful with a specific comp, but they're the only ones playing those specific heroes. So they just continue to get to play their very successful comp, right? I
Like
guess
Chang
eventually,
like Chengdu.
right. I guess eventually other people would try to play it but then they'd start getting banned. So it's like, what's the point, right? You're basically then playing defense
Well, you bring
of
up
trying
a
to play these heroes so they get banned, so Chengdu isn't so killing it.
well, I mean, you bring up a fantastic point. There might be a good reason to play off meta because you'll just get to keep practicing and playing those heroes. That's a great point. I had not thought about that.
And based on your matchup, right? So, like, say you play a team that's not very good this week, and you're like, well, we really, we play Shock next week and we really want to have so and so available. So let's not play them in hopes that maybe they don't get banned, right? Like, what's the percentage cutoff? We don't know any of those
I would
specific details.
I would be super interested in hearing how many tanks will be eligible in the pool? Like, is it just the 2 most played tanks that are in the pool, and then there's a 50% chance of each of them getting banned? Is there just 4 DPS that are in the pool of most played heroes, and they are the
Right,
only
like,
ones that
what
get a
is the
chance?
eligibility cutoff, right?
Yeah,
Like,
like
and DPS is gonna be even crazier, right? Because if you're playing a lot of different DPS, and if you switch throughout the map or switch throughout the maps, like, you could have a pool of 10, DPS players, and then 2 of them randomly get selected, right? So,
yep,
I think it will affect the teams that are more streamlining more than it will affect the teams that try to do something very creative. And you have to think about how that's going to affect you in the following weeks as well.
yeah, that's a great point. Time to play off meta, and then if a bunch of teams do that and it gets a little too crazy that I really just would like to know how many tanks are eligible for bans or if they're going to fluctuate it. Like,
Right? Kind of
eh,
like a curve.
yeah, it's
Like we
like,
had 6 tanks played this week, and here's like the 50% mark of these were played 50% or more. So these are the ones eligible. Like something like that, I feel like could be doable. But I also think you you get a team that plays off meta heroes and they're almost hindering themselves because I said they'd be benefiting, right? But then they're almost hindering themselves for the next week because the next week they're going to play probably that same comp, right? So now people have VODs to watch of you playing that comp and know how to combat you better, right?
yeah, yeah.
Granted, people knew how to combat Chengdu, kind of, and still couldn't do it. So,
Some couldn't, some
yeah,
could.
I'm saying not all the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, it'll definitely be, it really won't, this system will not give any benefits to trying to just trying to run that comp again the next week, like, because it'll be banning at least one from each support and tank. You're gonna take out you're gonna take out different ones each time. Like, there's a ton of crazy things that can happen. I'm trying to articulate this thought, but I'm having major problems.
Well, I
Base
mean, think of Chengdu though. Chengdu never would have had Wrecking Ball banned. They never would have had Farah banned. They never would have had any of their heroes banned that they were playing because they weren't playing any of the GOATS heroes.
Yeah, but I mean, goats just wouldn't have been a thing. If
Right.
you would have been able to play it like every other week, maybe, if everybody switched over to a completely different comp and you were able to get all 6 of those heroes back.
Right.
So, I don't yeah, and that was also a different time where you could pick any group of stuff. So, at that time, you know, banning DPS wouldn't have mattered at all because we weren't 2-2-2. It
Right.
was, you know what I mean? It was all tanks and supports, and then you ban those 3, and then all of a sudden, the tanks and supports are kind of a smaller pool. So,
Yeah.
it's kinda moot to talk about it in that sense. You can only really talk about it in the 2-2-2 sense. But let's, do you think Do you think the do you think it okay, so they're gonna be doing it every week. Do you think it would have been better to do it for 2 weeks and then ban there? You know, because then it would catch most of the people of the people would have to most teams would have to play at least 1 week with those bans. You know what I mean? Whereas
Right.
now teams are gonna get like, gonna get bye weeks where they don't even have to play that week's meta.
Right. And I guess that's what I like about it though, is that they're rotating it so quickly that it's not like, oh, just when I get good at starting to play this comp, I can't play it anymore. Right. Because even 2 weeks, like you get 1 week to kind of practice it, and then the next week you're doing really good. And then they ban those heroes and you can't play it again. Right. So I feel like it would just be a super cyclical nature there where it's like you see kind of okay games week one, really good games week two,
It
okay games week three, really good games week four, right?
it definitely completely changes the way coaches are going to need to tackle this next season. Coaches are going to need to prepare their players to actually do what Overwatch was supposed to be and swap heroes quickly based on what the other team plays. They're going to have to guess at what they think they're going to come out with a game plan, and they're going to have to tell their players in a situation where they bring out Doom, you need to do this to try and stop him, rather than what they were doing before, breaking down the meta and trying to like fine tune how they would play those same characters against the other group of same characters. So it's
Right.
definitely going to be harder to coach, but I think that it's actually way better.
Yeah, I agree with that. I also think I don't think you're gonna get the rapid hero switches that Overwatch quote unquote was intended for because ultimates are too strong, right? So I still don't think you're gonna get that. I think initially, you come out, you may see a lot of Sombra coming out and scouting and then them picking their comp, right? Like I think you may see more of that, but I still don't think you're gonna see like mid-match I'm, 90% to my ult on this hero and I'm gonna switch because they bring out Doom. Right? And whether that's good or bad, maybe we will see more of that, but
I feel like
it's
we should see more of it just because the synergies between the ultimates won't be as impactful when you're busting up the meta constantly.
maybe, yeah. It depends. I mean, you still may try to pick heroes that have good synergy with their ultimates, but I mean it'll just there's a lot that's going to be determined that I am just not smart enough to think about right now.
Yeah,
But
there'll be a lot to it back and a lot of things that all of us are going to be like, "Oh, I did not see that one coming."
right. Yeah, that one threw me for a loop.
Yeah,
Cool, guys.
but it's definitely going to push innovation over practicing and improving on what other people have innovated, and I think
Yeah,
that's awesome.
I think that's the biggest thing, you know?
Yeah,
I
and
think that's
just for
gonna make
the
it so cool.
viewers, oh my gosh. Like,
It's
I
true.
mean, the 3 stages of GOATs almost killed me last year, and man, ugh, it's just like it was and then the meta finally changed when the teams got word that 222 was coming in, so people weren't scared to just try something crazy, and that's how we
Right,
got the Shanghai high comp, which was awesome and fun to watch it just kill goats, and that's
right.
what we could be in store for on a weekly basis with this new change, and I think that's great.
Yeah,
Now no hero bans during the playoffs. So the playoffs are going to run now for the midseason tournaments. Uh, it's not going to be that big of a deal because it's going to be basically, well, what do we think is good, and
right.
but then like for the playoffs, as the playoffs go on, a a short term meta will happen. And whoever figures that out first is going to be at an advantage in playoffs because they're going to be able to pick whatever characters they want to pick.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, but I don't think having a short-term meta at the very end is going to destroy everything, right? I think you want, in the playoffs and in the finals to see the best Overwatch. And the only way you're going to get to see the best Overwatch is by having them practice a little bit
Yeah,
at this.
that's your opinion. My opinion is I like chaos, and I think that this is going to be a lot more chaotic and show off a lot more skill and big brains than anything ever used to. Because
Who knows? Maybe this will lead them to have a variety of comps in their back pocket to try at playoffs and make them more exciting, right? Because they've gotten to the playoffs by playing a number of different compositions, right? So now all of those compositions that they've played are available. And so they can just say, "Hey, let's do this on this map. It worked the best on this map. Let's try this if they bring this out." You know what I mean? Like it could lead to more variety and less of a stale meta because they're practicing different compositions throughout the day or throughout the season.
yeah, because it could have a week of each.
Right.
It's gonna be cool. It's definitely gonna be cool.
Yeah.
So okay, so I know that I totally agree with the teams finding out what's banned a week prior to the match. But how do you feel about it?
No, I think that's great. I think that the only reason that I thought it was up in the air if the teams were banning was because I felt like that was part of the strategy. But this isn't a strategy thing, this is Blizzard picking. So they should, and everybody has the same heroes band, right? So you should know in advance so you can prepare. And I think it will get us better matches than it would have if we didn't know what the bands were going to be. You know, there's no way to prepare for every possible composition.
Yeah, no, for sure not. You just have to be a lot more
Hope and pray.
teaching of Overwatch to the players because there are players that don't understand a lot of different fundamentals of Overwatch, and they they're just really good at clicking heads.
Yeah,
Like
or they know how to do their role. You know what I mean?
yep,
Like, and that's enough for some people.
yeah,
You can still be really good.
that's why you have coaches. That's why
Yeah.
yeah. But so I think all in all it's gonna be a good thing. I can't wait to see how it shakes up. I wish it was coming in 2 weeks after we open the doors. Like we're gonna have to wait
A whole month.
a whole month to see how this impacts everything.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of bummed about that because I would have liked to get the ball rolling with it a little bit faster.
Do you
But
think though in the first month, do you think there's any strategy as to not developing a meta? Right? Because if they develop a meta in the first month, then all of a sudden it's like now you got to figure something else out, right? It's better to be more creative throughout.
play to your strengths in this first month rather than
Right.
playing what is good. I mean,
But you
it
also
could
have to
probably
think,
pay off in the long run. Will coaches have the balls to do that? I just don't know.
right. I guess you also think too though, most teams, when does it come? March 7th.
March 7th.
So 4 weeks, most teams only play twice in that 4 weeks. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So it's not like last year or the year before where you're literally playing almost every single week. So you do have that, and maybe they did 4 weeks so they could see everybody play because teams like Atlanta Reign doesn't play until week 4.
Oh, you're right. You're right. Maybe they did make sure
make sure that every team's had, you know, a
They're
drop in the bucket there.
yeah. Still though, I still just personally as a spectator, I would have loved to seen it happen earlier, but it would be an
Can we talk about
interesting
the fact that Atlanta Reign doesn't play till week 4?
I
That's
was
super
I,
weird.
I was gonna bring that up too. That's kind of a bummer for iPlay.
It's just weird, like, I feel like you're like, "Yay, the season started next month for us. Cool.
Yeah,
See you
the
then."
the homestands have definitely thrown a wrench into how this all works. But if you just follow one team, it'd be a lot less stressful trying to catch every game too. So,
True.
I mean, there's also that, but it is going to be a bummer when our teams don't play and we just have to sit and wait. But I
Mhm.
also think it'll give people a lot of time to practice and break down what other teams are doing. Everybody there's a lot more travel this year, but there's a lot more bye weeks. Like they didn't
Right,
have those as much before, and this is going to be longer periods of time to where they just don't need to play. They could just kind of take in what's going on. Gives them just time to breathe, whether it's on a plane or not. It's still
right.
time they don't have to perform week after week after week, 4 days of the week. I mean, we gotta talk about that too. It's only 2 days a week now instead of 4 days a week, which is awesome for us who watch every game 'cause I love competitive Overwatch, but watching it 4 days a week
Is
almost
a
killed me over
lot.
the last 2 years. So
Yeah.
this is gonna be a welcome change.
Yeah, I think I'm excited about this because I think it was getting to be so much that it was hard to even digest. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like,
And
there was
same
just
for the players, the coaches, everything.
yeah, I mean, there was just too much happening to truly take in everything, like, you started not wanting to watch certain games because it was like, "Oh my god, I've watched 27 hours of this already this week."
Yeah, I think seasons 1 and 2 could have really made their lives a lot easier had they just done 1 game per week. Like,
Yeah,
just 1 game per week, that's what they have to prepare for. There was always one of the games was always not well prepared for, and therefore
right.
kind of a wash, and they had to choose what like, how they wanted to tackle that. I just think 1 game a week would have been good for them then, but this is kinda similar, it's just they'll be and it makes sense with the home stands to play multiple games because you're gonna have a lot more weeks off, so I think that's good. Now, what I do wanna talk about, though, is the patching and game updates. I think, like, the bans have kinda overshadowed how good this change is,
Right.
where they're going to basically they're gonna patch the game fast, and they're gonna do weird things fast, and this is what, like, lots of other games do. It's kind of the wave of the future, and it's what keeps everybody involved, and I think it's great for the actual game of Overwatch and for the Overwatch League.
Yeah, I agree. I think more frequent patches is only gonna make things better. I also think that they've done themselves a favor with the hero bans because if a player's being played a lot and they're banned for a week, then it gives them that time to do one of those mid patches where the next weekend they're going to be nerfed, basically, right? So they're back in the hero pool, but they're not as overpowered as they were the week that they were played.
And do you play them and just kinda see, or do like how confident do you feel that it's, gonna be, good enough to play the same way you were playing the couple weeks prior? And another thing that I don't know why I'm randomly bringing this up, but I'm excited teams aren't going to be able to scrim all the time, whoever they freaking want. I was like, that's what forms metas the worst is that
Right.
they see what they're doing in scrims, someone talks, and then they just copy it, and then everybody's running the same cookie cutter comp against the same cookie cutter comp. And
Right.
I think that them all being in LA sucked. Like, that part really sucked.
Yeah, I also think I don't know, they formed less of team relationships as they did just of Overwatch League relationships, I think. There was a lot of like, and I don't want them to hate each other, but I think you should be closer to your team than you are to everybody in the Overwatch League.
Yeah,
And
there was a
maybe
bunch
they
of
were
cross
slightly, but
yeah, there was a
not
whole
enough.
there was a there was a ton of cross, fraternization, I guess you would call it. I mean, I've hung out with, groups of players, and then there's, like, 3 different people there. It's like one team, but then there's 3 different people from 3 different teams hanging out with
Right,
that one team, and it's just, "Huh, that's interesting," But, I
right,
mean, you like who you like, but this will help kinda force getting to know your team and really,
right,
really making it a choice of where you wanna go to, not only is where you're gonna live, where you're stationed at, but also who you're gonna be around constantly, and
right.
it'll help develop better bonding between the teams themselves, like, just that one team.
Yeah, I agree.
But the game changes happening fast are gonna be one of the coolest parts of this whole thing, and I think it's been kinda glazed over with uh, how dramatic, hero pools are, because
Right.
hero pools are like the sledgehammer. I mean, it is a sledgehammer. It's,
It definitely is.
some people have called it half-baked. I think it definitely came a little too late, the announcement. Like, I think they should have been telling us this a month and a half ago and not just right now before the league starts. I think it could have
Well,
given
there's a
people
lot of
time.
to tell us not just right now before the league starts, like who's casting, who's on the desk, like
Yeah,
just random little tidbits. Like we still don't know a lot. And it starts in 5 days.
well, but specifically this, like, teams could have used this information in off-season pickups, and I think that really sucks for the team. Like, now you've
Right.
got teams that have picked people based on what they're good at and what they think the meta is gonna be, but now there's just gonna be
Yeah,
a
if teams
fluctuating
did that
meta.
though, they're just stupid because the meta changes throughout the season anyways. So if
Yeah,
you
well,
picked
you're
people
preaching
for
to the
what the
choir
current
there.
meta is,
Yeah.
like you lost already. But I guess my last thing on the patching is that they say it'll go into effect within 2 weeks, right? So they already announced the patch that Overwatch League would start on, but it's been more than 2 weeks since they announced that. So are they going to start it on a patch different?
Well, if just like everything else, we're just gonna have to find out a couple days prior.
Yeah, we'll probably find out on the 8th.
Yeah,
Like, just kidding, guys.
I
I already did
really
some of it.
I really wish we could have disagreed on more things. Wish we could have brought someone on that would have at least disagreed with the whole thing so we could have had a different point of view, but I'm sorry guys, we agree with this change, and we watch every game, so deal with it. It's our opinion. We're keeping it. Like, I mean, it's basically
Yeah,
how it
I
is.
don't even have, like, much to play devil's advocate with. Like, I can't think of a lot of arguments against this, I guess.
Yeah, it's just I don't think bans would have been great in many different ways they could have implemented it. And this wouldn't have been great either if it was right before the match, in my opinion. I think you need to give coaches the more time, and the more time is really what
The
changed
more
it for
time, the
me.
more competitive the game.
For the game of Overwatch, I think I would have rather seen bans, because what bans could have done in the regular game is, I mean, they would have been different at all SRs, but it would have given data to the devs on what is overpowered and what is overpowered in gold and what is overpowered in silver, and it would have given them a lot of, because people are
Yeah,
going
but
to ban
then
what's
they've got
overpowered.
all this right, but then they've got all this information given to them that they can't do anything with, because why is so and so overpowered in gold and never played in Grandmaster, right? What are you gonna do? You're gonna tune him down and then he's just never played anywhere? Or, like, it gets really complicated. I do think hero bans in the actual game would have been very difficult.
Yeah, it
I
definitely would have
think
been
that
difficult.
I think hero pools, and this is some criticism that I've heard, is that the hero pools for Al will be different than they are in the game, which I think is necessary, right? There's very few people that play the game that can pull off the comps that they do in Al. So if you ban the same heroes, it probably wouldn't even affect gold. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
I mean,
Like,
that's a very good point. You know, everybody talks about how that not everybody, but some people be like, "Oh, I love to dive." But dive was not playable by anybody outside of like diamond and up. I mean,
or you
it
just dive on the character,
yeah,
right? Like, that's
like
it.
most people didn't even know how the comp was supposed to be played or what their role in the comp was. And that's just the way it's going to be, differing
Right.
from pro play to, just me playing a couple hours every night. It's going to be very different. And to I hadn't really thought about that, but that is a good point. I do like that it is different.
Well, I
I
also
think
think that
before I was on the other fence
it may stop people from trying to play the quote unquote meta
and
in
playing it
gold.
wrong. Yeah.
Right. Where you're not playing the meta, you're playing the characters in the meta, but you're not playing it how it's supposed to be played. So now you get to see a different meta every week with different compositions, and it almost in turn makes a lot more heroes viable in just the regular game of Overwatch, right? Because there's not just these 6 heroes that you have to play every time.
Well,
You look at Overwatch League and they're playing a ton of different heroes.
the meta slaves,
Mhm.
those guys that always yell that they always yell at you for not picking what's meta. They get worse and worse as you go down the ladder, because the further you go down in rank, the more they're just talking out of their ass, not knowing how the comps even work, and then they're they're uh they're telling you to play this, but they don't even know why you should be playing it. So I think that could be good. Well, guys, we lost Mel, so I'm going to entertain you with jokes for the next few seconds here. So why did the radish kiss the banana? That's a good one. Because it had a peel. Okay, this is horrible and derailing fast. So I'm just going to give you some news. Oh, Mel's back. Mel's
I'm
back.
so sorry, guys. That was
Well, I told a
oof,
great joke.
I heard it.
Jokes
It
from
was
Fraggle Rock. It's one of my
yeah,
favorite jokes when I was a
it's like
kid.
one of the ones you get on, like, Laffy Taffies or something. Come
Oh,
on.
the best part is I told that joke for years until I actually understood it. Because when I heard it, I was a little kid and I was like, oh well, we don't want to kiss, so it had a peel that blocked it, and then
Oh my
I
gosh.
think it was like fifth grade. I was like, oh, a peel, okay. It's horrible.
You shouldn't tell anybody else that story.
Well, I just told the internet, so
Yep, it's there
oh,
for good now.
I have never been afraid of making fun of myself. It's kind of my shtick, babe. But
Okay.
so I think we've kind of unpacked this as much as we can for right
Yeah.
now, until we see it in action. I do hope that we do see a lot of teams trying to play to their strengths in the months moving up. It will give hero bands it'll make hero bands a lot less of a sledgehammer when they do hit. So I hope the teams actually think about that and try. But
Agreed.
let's just move on to some closing news here. Reinforce is back on the desk.
I think that's cool. I think Reinforce has improved in his likability factor, and I know there was a lot of people that liked him before, but I think he was a little dry before. I think having Zoe and Custa there is going to be enough to kind of bring him out of his shell.
I mean, I think in season 2, he did come out of his shell. He just wasn't
Right.
able to showcase it in what he was doing. And
He was also, like, legit one of the only people that really knew what was happening at the beginning. Okay, Sideshow did too, but,
no, I
like,
mean,
he had
season 1, he was like the only like
yeah,
for months, he was like the only one that had any clue what was going on in the actual
right.
league. And
So,
the
like, that
rest
kind
of the people
of
were like, "Hey, repeat what he said
yeah,
in just a more charismatic fashion," you know?
right. So, I think that kind of put him in a bad light to some, but I'm excited. I think he's got a lot to offer.
Yeah, I think he's improved a ton. I've liked a lot of his content he's been doing with Sideshow and Custa on Plat Chat, and I think he has become a lot more charismatic than he was before. I think you're right. I think he was very dry, and his speaking wasn't as good in the beginning. His
Mhm.
English wasn't as good, and I can't talk smack because freaking stutter half the time. So,
Oh
more
boy.
power to him. I'm happy that he got back in. I think he is one of the true guys that really loves Overwatch, and I like to see those guys staying. And the ones that are moving on, I mean, Overwatch isn't their first love, and more power to them too. And so
Yeah, for sure.
I'm just excited to see how the desk works. Like, where's it at? Is it in LA? Is it at Blizzard? I've heard rumors. I forget who told me. Maybe it was Loki. I don't know. I've heard rumors that they've been renovating some space in the 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 Blizzard offices. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with that and what the production value will be like with them not around the players if the desk isn't on the road. Because
Right.
they used to do a lot of they did a lot of wacky things that were really fun at the home stands, and we'll be missing out on those wacky, fun skits and things if they're not there. And will they be playing them on the Trinitron at the home stands? I'm extremely excited to see how they tackle this.
Well, it's kinda like when you go to a live sports event, though. Like, you don't get the same, like, broadcast that you do if you're watching it on your TV, and the halftime show isn't from the field. You know what I mean? So, like, I do think that it's more in line with what typical traditional sports do, whether that's good or bad is kind of
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, they always on big games, they always have the desk and different shows move down on the field, interview players. I mean,
well, and I think
it's
they
a
will
whole
have
after
for, like, the
show.
finals. I think they will,
Yeah,
but
they
I
probably
think
will fly
every
him out for the
week by
finals.
week, right? Like, I don't think that's necessary, and, maybe it will be where they've got, each team or something maybe has their correspondence that they you know, go down to, kinda like they do I sorry, I'm in a football mode because we just won the Super Bowl,
Chiefs.
but but, like, they'll go down and one of the, people on the mic will have just talked to the Chiefs, at the halftime and gotten some more information to share with everybody, right? Like, but you don't have if you're at the event, you don't see that necessarily.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, at the events, that was something that was kind of special about it in Burbank is that you'd get to see the casters right there front and center for season 2. I thought that was a cool change where you'd get to see
Mhm.
Uber actually at being animated during it, and get to see Mr. X lounging while he's casted, and I mean that
Well,
was
and
just
it
kind of
was kinda
neat.
weird in like, at the Atlanta homestand where the caster desk was like in a totally separate wing of the building. You know, it was it was interesting, and didn't really like it, but that was what they had to work with, you know? And a lot of the venues that aren't built like the Blizzard Arena don't have a desk chilling or a spot for a desk, you know?
Yeah, well, like the Dallas one, they had the desk just right on the floor, back in the
Because it
back.
was like an arena though,
Yeah.
where they had 4 seats, you know what I mean? But like
Mhm.
Atlanta was like a theater,
Yep.
and you can't just like pop out a few of the seats to put a desk in.
Yeah. Yeah, and you said
Mhm.
casters, but you meant to say desk in Atlanta. The casters were out
Yeah,
out
that's what I
there
meant.
in the arena. They actually had two sets of them too,
Mhm.
um, that were doing the different broadcasts. But the desk was definitely out of the way. I thought it was actually better for the desk because people would get out of their seats like after the match and run over there and watch them, and they could get a lot of people around the desk to watch it live.
Right.
Uh, and fans could get behind the camera and be like, "Hey, look at me." I mean, it was neat in a different regard than the Dallas one was. But
Yeah, for sure.
oh, for the last thing we got here, beloved Mickey moves to content creator for Dallas Fuel.
Dude, I think that's the best thing that they could have done.
But what's he gonna make? Like, I don't like. I guess I haven't seen if he's made any content of his own before, but
Content creators, lots of times, are just streamers.
I
And
mean, I guess he could just stream for him.
well, and I think the biggest thing is that everybody loves Mickey, right? Even I love Mickey and I don't like Dallas. So he's a huge face that the more they get his face out there, the better. Because the more he just doesn't play, the more mad people are. Like they want to see Mickey, right? I want to see Mickey. I just want to see him smile. And I
So maybe
think
he'll make
them
content where he'll be interviewing the players on the fuel, or he'll be walking around the home stands and talking to fans
right.
and getting reactions. I think that could be super cool.
Yeah, and I think that's more on par with y they didn't have a place for him in the roster. It was obvious last season, and maybe he's just like, "I think I'd rather be a cool person and go talk to people,
Cool person,
smile."
huh?
Yeah, just smile, Mickey.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's kind of sad to see him, stepping down from being a pro player, but it is cool to see. I mean, man, say whatever you want about the Dallas Fuel, but man, Hastro cares about his players, man. He
Whatever I
doesn't
want.
he doesn't want to get rid of them, so he like hires him on to be a coach or a caster or a
You act like he's the only coach that has done this. Do you know how
I'm
many
not
players have
saying
moved to
I'm not saying
streamer?
he's the only coach. I'm just saying
Oh my
specifically,
god.
everybody likes to talk smack on him, but he's he's a pretty good dude, man.
I have nothing bad to say about him yet.
Well, we already talked about the games we were most excited for the start of the season last week, so I don't think we need to talk about that. Do you have anything else before I close this out?
No, I think just a reminder about the games next week. We've
Go on.
got New York homestand and the Dallas homestand. So you've got Defiant, Spitfire, Eternal, and Uprising in New York battling it out. And then you've got the Gladiators, the Valiant, Shock, Fuel, and the Titans in Dallas. So tune in. It should be a good couple days of matches.
Yep. And chat was kind of quiet tonight, but we appreciate you guys stopping by. Thank you so much. I am looking into how and if it's legal to stream on Twitch and YouTube at the same time, but I do want to start doing it on YouTube as well, especially since the Overwatch League is moving over to YouTube. So I'd just like to get some ins and outs of it, and I hear it's like way better quality too. So maybe it'll be, cooler. And we have a lot more people that follow us on YouTube than on Twitch. We started our Twitch like way too late, I think. But if you want to reach us, you can find us on Twitter at AlRecap. We stream at twitch.tv/AlRecap. All of our all of our shows go on to YouTube as well at youtube.com/AlRecap. If you want to send something a little bit longer, send your email to contact@alrecap.com. We would love to have YouTube comments, likes, and iTunes reviews. Please, if your YouTube comment's really good, we will read it on the show. And if your
You have to be
iTunes,
impressive, though.
yeah, yeah. It's got to be something that sparks a conversation with us. So give us your thoughts, and if you think we're right or I'm wrong, there's definitely. I mean, you might have more chance of getting on the show by telling us we are wrong, especially in this, since we couldn't really find devil's like a devil's advocate conversation. So it would be great to see what you guys think. And for iTunes reviews, it's been a while since we got an iTunes review, and we would like to
It's
have
also been a
one.
while since we posted, so we just started posting again.
Oh yeah, since we came back from the break. But if
Yeah.
you guys want to interact with our community, we just had game night last Friday night. It was great. We'll have another game night come February 28th. So if you want to be involved in that or just want to have conversations with other Overwatch fans, you can go to discord.me/omniclab. All right, Mel, where can we find you?
You can find me on Twitter at MelOverwatch.
And you can find me on Twitter at Blazzin_Bob. That's BLAZZIN_BOB. Thank you guys, and we'll talk to you after next week. And we've seen some games. I can't wait. Gonna get a whoop whoop. All right. Take it easy.
Bye.